All right, hello everyone. My name is Shelby Cooke. I'm the editor-in-chief at Film East, and today I'm speaking with the team behind the new short film, Potwash. Joining me is director Josh Trett, director of photography Matty Trett, and star Kyle Malan. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank
Um,
you. It's great to be here.
so, Josh and Maddie, we have spoken before. It's been a couple of years since we last spoke. So, everyone can go back and watch that interview on your short film Dial. What have you guys been up to since then?
Not much.
Just sitting
Absolutely
around.
nothing.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, we've been aside from the short film stuff we do, we have our own production company, and so that's taken up a lot of our time in the last couple of years, just keeping that busy and keeping ourselves paid and keeping bills paid. Um, we've been lucky enough with some of the, I guess, success of Dial, and that it picked up a few awards here and there, and we took it to a few film festivals. And that's been really fun. Actually, that was quite a surreal experience. You know, when you make these things, you just never know what the external response is going to be. And you know, it's a film. It's people have their opinions on it, on any film that's ever made, right? Some people like it, some people don't. So you just hope enough people like it and that it resonates well. And this one, that one, Dial seemed to. So it was fun to take that around. And we've got one left. We've got like one film festival screening left in a few months in New York, which I'm hoping to attend to. And then I think that one's done, and hopefully we can go on to sort of taking Potwash around in a similar way. Matt, have you been doing anything else I didn't know
Just
about?
watching films, really. But yeah, no, it's weird because Dial seems like such a long time ago that we kind of finished that film, and we've been going to these screenings, and sometimes I forget that it's actually Dial that's playing. I'm like, whoa, this film's still going. So yeah, it's been that, and yes, kind of juggling the corporate side of our business as well. So it's been a big mix, but yeah, we haven't really had too much time to really stop because as soon as Dial was done, Potwash started, and yeah, we edited that end of last year,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it's just kind of been non-stop, and then yeah, Potwash is now kind of starting its own run, and so hopefully that's it's going to have like a long life as well at festivals.
So I've been keeping up with your journey with Dial. It's you said it's won a couple of awards. You're being very modest. It went to Cannes. It's gone to quite a lot of big places, which is very exciting. Um, I think for the people who are watching this who are filmmakers, they're interested in getting people to see their films. Can you talk a little bit about that festival experience with the film and how you got the film out into the world for audiences to see?
Yeah, for the film festival sort of like process of submitting and that kind of thing is something that, to be honest, I'm still learning the best way to approach it. And you have to, at the same time, I kind of pick up something new each time I do it with the film. But also, every film is different, and you know, one film may belong in one festival doesn't mean that your next film also belongs to that festival. If that makes sense, because some of them are based on genre and themes, and some of them just, you know, the way they curate things, they're looking for a certain type of film, one way or the other. So it's hard to do, and I think one thing that's difficult about it is you kind of have to plan in terms of what you put into, of course, but you also have to plan financially. Like, what's my budget for film festivals, and how many can I submit to within this budget, and which ones am I going to submit to? The difficulty is, you know, with anything that's sort of when you're working in this creative world, is you face a lot of rejection. So you know, I think with every film I've put into festivals, there's you know, maybe five or six that are rejected for if not more for every one that's made. I think so. It's so you want to make sure that you're planning the best you can to make sure that the ones you're getting into, and you know, the ones you're submitting to, have a stake in it. To be honest, and you know, the scale of festivals you submit to is going to play into that too. But the rejection thing is still difficult because I kind of, in an ideal world, I'd make every single one I submit to, but I just know that's not realistic. But you know, when you do get into them, it is a really good experience. I think, you know, some people ask me like, what's in the day and age of streaming and that kind of thing, and YouTube, and what's the point in film festivals? But going to them is such a good and fun experience. Even as like, just if you're not a filmmaker of the film in the festival, just going to a film festival where you can see stuff that you probably wouldn't find anywhere else, and seeing it in a screening with other people, I think is just more valuable than ever right now, to be honest. So that's what's really good about it. And what was nice about when we've done Dial with places, and also the 2 screenings we've done so far with Potwash, is that the rooms have been packed, and that's such a nice feeling, just to kind of know that there's loads of people in the room watching it, but you get a sense of what's landing and what's resonating with people in that film. When you have a room full of people, it's a completely different experience to watching it online, because often if people want to see your film and they can't make the physical screenings, you might send them a link to it, and they're probably like watching it with their phone on their chest,
Yeah.
and like
In a bright room.
yeah.
Yeah.
And going back to TikTok and every 5 minutes and that kind of thing. So it's you want people to. It sounds a bit like pretentious that you want people to watch your film on the biggest screen possible, but it does make a difference to how you experienced it, I think. And with this one and with Dial, we got them mixed for a 5.1 sound mix, and so that really plays best when it's in a cinema screen.
Yeah, I've shown especially Dial to quite a few people, either at their house or like whatever, and they always have like motion smoothing on. As you said, like the sun's always blurring into the TV. I'm like, this looks terrible. Like, what have I done? And then yeah, you go and see it at the cinema, and it's like, oh no, maybe maybe I did all right. Like it's totally different experience of how these films look. So yeah, it's great. And it's one of the rare occasions where you can show it to strangers who have no, like, you can send the film to a friend and they're gonna say it's great. Like no one's gonna boo at it.
Yeah.
But when you're in the room, like even if people aren't necessarily talking to you, you really feel like it's Dial, because it's a horror. You see that people kind of react to things happening, which you just don't get with any other experience of showing the films, really.
What stood out the most to me with Dial was the horror elements. And you have brought those back in this new film, Potwash. But the film is a horror, but it grounds itself in elements of realism, working in a kitchen. Tell us a little bit about this film. What is it about, and why did you want to make this put this particular story to film?
Yeah, that's a good point on sort of the sort of a multi, I don't know how you'd describe it, but like the multi-genre of this film has been particularly challenging when I'm doing the film festival things, because what genre do I put it under? Because I started thinking about horror, and although it has elements of that, doesn't have enough of that, maybe that genre tropes to tick that box. And then if you look at it as a drama, maybe it's got too many horror elements in to be that. So it's a really hard one to like put into a category. But I think some of that is just kind of like, with each film we make, we get more of an understanding of what our style of filmmaking is, whatever genre it is. And I think maybe some of those common tropes are kind of the things that interest us as filmmakers, and how we use the sort of language of film to tell a story. And I think that's what's carrying through, and just some of that happens to kind of be in the horror genre. When I started developing this script, it was written more as, I guess, like a social realism type thing, because it's based on when I was a teenager at this time working in a kitchen. So I was literally taking things that I remember and just giving them a bit of cinematic spin, and then trying to find a way to connect them as a story. But as I was developing the script, it just became more interesting to kind of just do this kind of almost like messed up character study of Kyle's character in it. And that's kind of how it grew into something a little bit more twisted and a little bit more weird and ambiguous, I guess. But yeah, does that answer that question?
Yeah, no, I think what I really connected with it was it had elements of, something like The Bear, where it was that high intensity kitchen space, but it also had it reminded me of a lot of British coming of age TV shows where it had that, unique editing, you do the split screen, you have a lot of use of lighting with the colors of the lighting. I guess, Maddie, what was your sort of take on building the atmosphere within the story?
Yeah, I think it was. I think when we did Dial, I had very clear inspirations. Okay, I want it to like this. With Potwash, it was kind of a mixture of things, and I think they're a little less obvious in this. But one of the things me and Josh were talking about is if you watch films, because the film's set in like 2010, films in that time, a lot of things were still on film. The colors really pop. Like you just watch a random like cheap comedy, and they look amazing compared to what's coming out now. And they just all have this like really nice colors. And that's the one of the biggest things I wanted to bring into this. Again, comparing it to Dial, Dial's very dark and desaturated, where this, I was like, what can I do that's completely different but still feels like it's from the same team? So yeah, I was bringing a lot of kind of colors in, and yeah, I just wanted to kind of feel more and more dreamlike as the story went on. So if you watch some of the earlier scenes, they do still feel kind of quite real. And then without spoiling it, as you get towards the end, there is a lot more like uh, over the top saturated colors. And it was kind of like a nice way of kind of the story has like an A to B, but so does the visual language, and it just became more and more almost like creative towards the end, which was great. But some of the other things I was looking at is obviously there's the characters of like the chef that's um, uh, kind of looking down on Darcy's character in the film, and I was looking at stuff like the POV kind of shots, kind of a little bit of both. This is a weird like cocktail, but Peep Show and Silence of the Lambs, which you don't often they don't cross over that much, but that kind
I
of like
can see
looking
that.
straight down into the camera. Yeah,
I can see
yeah.
that coming in.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of was taking kind of inspirations from them really of that thing, and that works great. Especially we've watched it at some of the premieres in a big screen, and when Mark's character is like looking right down at you, it is quite terrifying. A lot of that obviously comes from his performance as well, but it was just a great way of making you feel like you're in those moments, even when it gets a little bit more like dreamlike. You're still the audience is still there.
Yeah, and I think going on some of those sort of like reference points of an inspiration for this is it's hard to make a film now set in a kitchen without kind of having the bear at the back of your
Yeah.
head. Like it's quite big as a kitchen based like drama series, right? So it's hard to ignore that. But I think I was kind of more interested in like having worked in that role that the sort of sexiness of the food is nowhere not
Yeah.
close to what like the kitchen porter does, right? He's kind of the bottom of that work hierarchy, and that was the stuff I wanted to explore. And then more so with that, the coming of age stuff was quite was interesting too. And I've kind of I mean, need to come up with a better term, but I'm calling it like a not coming of age story because of the way the film ends. Like it borrows from that genre, but ultimately the ending is a little more dark than maybe you'd expect it for a film in that genre to go. So and I some of the stuff was also from like kind of the filmmakers I admire from like the independent like American filmmakers like Kevin Smith and like what that kind of workplace
Mm.
um you know kind of just kind of standard everyday life put on film kind of thing. Like looking at Clerks, one of my favorite ones, that's just kind of like here's a day in the life of these people and what it's like, and it having kind of low stakes in one sense but with elevated in others. And you know kind of that some of the early Richard Linklater stuff where it's kind of young people finding out where they belong in kind of the world, but also in this case specifically how do you navigate the working world at that young age. That's kind of the stuff that was interesting in developing this, I think.
Kyle, let's bring you into the discussion. You're sitting there all quiet. Um, so this is our first time speaking. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you made it to this project with Josh and Matty?
Yeah, of course. So I am now a London-based actor, but I grew up in Suffolk in Lowestoft, and I always was still pursuing acting in those days. And I met Josh originally because he was my media teacher at college. I mean, you were very young; you were like 21 when you did that, right? And yeah,
Yeah.
so that's how we first met. Under that sort of relationship. But I think after that first year, Josh went off and started pursuing like Trett films with Matty. And then I sort of went off to drama school and started pursuing acting. And we kept in like touch through like social media, but it was years after. And then, you know, I knew about Dial because I'd seen it was doing really well. And then Josh kind of just hit me up out of the blue with a script being like, yeah, no, I've written this script basically about me when I was like 19. And then I said, oh, well, my first job was a Potwash as well. So it was just like all these little weird omens when we made it. So that's what led me on to working on the project with these guys. And yeah, it was brilliant. It was good fun.
I'm always really interested between the dynamics of the actor and the director and how characters are built on set. Can you talk a little bit about the working process of creating your character? Was there a lot of improv on the set? Was it a lot of rehearsals? What was sort of that process like?
Well, I think Josh and I had quite a lot of dialogue just even before leading up to the first day. We didn't really have any time to do rehearsal, as you know, it's probably quite rare, especially on a short film. But we had lots of time to just like talk and discuss about all these little things about his character, like his music, what type of music he's listening to, all different sorts of genres. Again, connecting the fact that both of us had our first job as a Potwash, and uh, regardless of Isaac's character, your first job is often one where you'll be taken advantage of, and sort of talking about things like that. And then, by the time we got to set, I think we all felt quite confident. We all knew what we were doing. So there wasn't like crazy amounts of improv or anything, but there was always like room for suggestions. Like I remember suggesting to Josh that Isaac should like offer his hand to Charlotte instead of, like, in the script it said he kind of grabs her and takes her away. And it's like quite an iconic scene in the film now. But yeah, no, it was very collaborative on set, and it was very, relaxed. As I said, there wasn't a crazy amount of improv, but I think that's just because we felt it wasn't necessary. It kind of like the script had been rewritten a couple of times, and we just felt like we felt quite confident about it.
Did you?
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I just think this is, although like me and Kyle had that sort of, we'd met before through a completely different sort of professional situation. We hadn't actually worked together in this way before. But I think he came up. I can't remember how it just came to. I think either I just saw you on Instagram or something as I was writing the script, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like I don't even have to think about it now. Like if he's going to do it, he's right for it. And by the time we got to filming, I was like, okay, yeah, he's really bringing his A game to this. He's not just kind of turning up to get a couple of shots for his portfolio. He's taking it seriously, and he cares about making this film as much as I do. And that meant a lot. And I don't know if I think as a director who can't act, I do have a lot of I do admire actors for what they're able to do and the situations they can put themselves in. So I don't know if it was he has a bravery as an actor, or he just trusted me as a director, or maybe a bit of both. But there was something I could do. I knew I could just kind of push him a bit further, and that's kind of what led to some of the more interesting parts of Kyle's performance. Is he was up for anything, but could do it well. There's always a chance, I guess, when you're acting. Am I going to look like I make a fool of myself and look silly? But I guess that didn't matter, which actually worked, because I think that's why he comes across so strong. There's a real presence in the film.
Was there any particular inspiration when you're building the character, aside from your past experiences? Did you pull from any other sources, any other actors that you appreciate, anything else that inspired your character?
Yeah, of course. There was loads of stuff. I mean, I did try to keep it quite personal, because I've done, when I was at drama school, I've done the whole thing of basing your performance of another performance, and you basically just do that performance instead. And it's like, well, someone's already done it better than you. So I tried to keep it more personal in terms of actors. But I did plenty of research in, I don't know how much was necessary, of actual Potwashers today, because as I said, it was my first job. So kind of wanted to refresh myself. And I went through Chinatown, kind of going to all these restaurants asking if I could wash their dishes. And they kind of thought I was a little bit insane, I can't lie. But, I still got to see some things, kind of update myself with the tech, even though it was a period piece that we were doing. And then also there is so much stuff on YouTube of ASMR hot washers washing for hours and hours and hours. So there's just it was just more to kind of get the truthfulness of because if there's someone watches it, as I say, I was a pot washer. I have lots of friends that are pot washers. You want them to kind of feel a bit seen as they're watching it as well. like a guitarist can always tell when someone's pretending to play the guitar.
Yeah.
So I kind of like a similar mentality of, if I'm taking the plates here, why am I taking? Oh, maybe that's the drying station or stuff like that, rather than just like, doing something for the sake of it. But yeah, no, they definitely thought I was a bit weird in Chinatown though.
One of my favorite bits of the movie is this mixtape storyline. So Kyle, your character makes these mixtapes for your coworkers. The mixtape is an underrated art. I think it's something that people have lost the mixtape. Of course, everyone makes playlists now. But why did you want to bring that sort of element in? Because mixtapes kind of hark back. I know you said it was a 2010 sort of type period piece, but it harks back to the 80s and the 90s as well.
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons. One is because one reason it's set in that time is because that's the time it was when I was that age doing
Mm.
this, and I used to do that exact thing. I'd make these kind of mix CDs to bring into the kitchen, and we'd play them on like the CD player in the kitchen, and everyone would kind of like mock my music choices, which is another bit in the film where the sous chef mocks what he's put on the CD, and nothing ever correlated. It would be like a Minnie Riperton song, and then like System of a Down. Like there was no like kind of proper playlist to it. But I wanted the film to kind of be music focused, like have this indie film vibe of being soundtrack led in some sense, but also have that be part of the story. And I think, as you said, you can make playlists now, but there's so little effort involved in making a playlist. It takes away the personalness of it. So actually going through the physical like action of making a CD, and once it's burned, it's done, and you have to physically give it to someone. It just feels like a much more bigger gesture. And when you're working with film, you can just kind of play with that a bit more in terms of like have that as something that's tangible and not something that's just kind of exists on a cloud somewhere. It kind of exists forever in that way. So that's part of the reason for that.
I do also think I have to say it was just also quite a big part of Isaac's character in general, because I think, as we said, it's his first job. He's quite young. He's quite shy. He's got a crush on this girl, but he's not very expressive. But he finds music is a very easy way to express himself, without, risking. I mean, obviously, like Josh says, you have to put the work and the effort in, but I guess there's less risk of embarrassment by just putting a song on. It's quite a safe thing. Especially in a kitchen, everybody loves music. So I think that was kind of Isaac's way of really expressing himself. And as like you say, if someone gave you a mixtape today, like I think I'll fall in love with them like straight away, because that's so like they personally have to think of every single song, and then they personalize it for you as well. So it's quite an expressive thing to do, even though like you may not see it as much.
Mm.
Yeah, Carl, did you have that as part of like your prep too? Weren't you writing like playlists in character or something?
Yeah, I had plenty. I had lots of playlists for just the kitchen, because as we said, me and Josh were like, as you just said, no correlation. Don't have jazz, then rock, then rap, then pop. Nothing, no through line. But then there was obviously in the story, without giving too much away, he does make a playlist for Charlotte as well. So was more looking towards like, that sort of thing of like making a playlist for a specific person, and kind of like it's quite a vulnerable thing to do, because you kind of feel like you putting your soul on the line. If they don't like it,
Yeah.
it's like they're stamping on your soul.
So wrapping it up, Film East, we work with a lot of young people interested in film and filmmaking, and we're us as at Film East, we're not filmmakers, we're not a filmmaking organization, but we still have a lot of people come to us looking for career advice. So I always like to end all of my interviews with creatives with the question about what you can say to young people. Josh and Maddie, we got your answer for this last time. So, Kyle, I would like to pose this question to you. What's the one thing that you would tell a new filmmaker, someone new, maybe a new actor, just got out of school, what to do or focus on when they're making their first film or attempting to get their name out there and get working in the industry?
Interesting. Oh, it's quite a big question. I think one thing I notice a lot with, especially with young filmmakers when they're trying to start their first film, is it's quite common to put like an extreme amount of pressure on yourself. Like you have to make like a Kubrick level film. Otherwise, it's your one shot and that's it. And I don't necessarily think it's true. I think it's a process, and it's okay to make mistakes as long as you're learning from them. So just remember things like that. And then also, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You're going to, all the people you work with, you're probably going to work with them again. So, never let anything get to your head. Stay humble, stay friendly. And most importantly, do it because you love it. That's the reason why we all made Potwash, and that's why it was such an amazing set to be on, because we just generally loved it. Like, if we had to stay on for another 4 hours to get a shot, no one would complain, because that's why we wanted to do it. We love telling stories, and any chance to do that is a fantastic day.
Josh and Maddie, do you have anything new to add?
I can't actually remember what I said last time, but yeah, I always think like it is what Kyle said, and it's like you just keep making stuff, because I always look back to things that, like in the past, and you're like, oh, okay, you can see how much better you get as you keep doing it, and it's you learn from your mistakes and you learn what works. I might have said that last time, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was the last time. I think as well, one thing I like to encourage is not to compare your own journey too much to other people's. I know that like the sort of obvious thing is comparison is the thief of joy, etc. But there is truth to that, I think. And I've been guilty of like being like, well, I'm not where this person is, and so I've failed. But equally, there's probably people that maybe look what I think and think like, why how come I'm not where he is, etc. So I think it is about just kind of like the continuousness of it. And as Carl said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's not about pushing everything all at once, burning yourself out, and then not being able to carry on. It's like piece by piece, build your career, and try and listen to the right people, and try and ignore people that tell you kind of to give up. Because that's the other thing I don't like to hear is when people give advice. Sometimes someone who's maybe like an industry veteran would say, like, someone would ask them, what's a piece of advice you would give to a young person? And they'd say, like, find something else to do. And I heard that on a podcast from someone that I quite like admire as well. And I was like, oh, who do you like? Why do you get to say like, oh no, you don't just give up? It's like you've had your go, and now you're just kind of poo-pooing on everyone else. I feel like that the people that you're kind of encouraging to could make the next best thing, and you missed it because you kind of uninspired them a little bit. So I think it's just about kind of keeping going and keeping motivated, and things work out one way or another, even if it's not the exact trajectory you kind of thought it would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely good advice. Don't compare, especially on social media when you're seeing what everyone else is doing. Everyone's always posting their wins. They're never posting their failures. So
yeah,
definitely good advice. So if anyone's watching this and they want to see Potwash, where can they find it? How can they reach out to see when next screenings are? What can they do?
Yeah, I think I mostly actually post about kind of Potwash's screenings on my own Instagram. So that's just Josh Trett on Instagram. There's nothing happening immediately. We're waiting to hear from what the next film festival screenings will be. But I'm hoping this year there's going to be a few kind of across the UK and beyond. Once it's had its little kind of festival run, we will put it on YouTube, which is where Dial is now as well, or somewhere else that can kind of some other streaming site of some sorts. But yeah, immediately there's nothing, but coming soon we'll have something, I'm sure.
All right, fabulous. Thank you all for joining me today. And we'll look forward to the next time when you release your next short film, and we get to follow up with that too.
Sounds good. Yeah,
yeah, can't wait. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.